This video is brought to you by Gamersubs. If you're a Jujutsu Kaisen fan, you've probably dreamt of a few video game concepts, but I would bet that your dreams do not look like this. And yet, that's all that's been announced so far. Despite the incredible success of Jujutsu Kaisen in the last year, topping sales charts, the biggest investment we have for a video game is mobile. I'm hoping that will change soon, but in the meantime, what is the dream Jujutsu Kaisen game? What can this show do in a video game format that other shows cannot? I asked you guys this question on Twitter and on the YouTube community tab, and we got all sorts of answers. We got the usual fighting games and arena fighters, but we also got RPGs, we got action games like Devil May Cry, and we've got some more unexpected takes like a Gojo dating sim. Today, I'm gonna be ignoring the fighting game and arena fighter ideas because I might come back to those in a future video. But after reading all of your comments, inspiration finally struck, so here it is, the dream Jujutsu Kaisen game. This isn't a game that follows the anime story. Instead, it begins with you creating your own character. As you're about to enroll in the Tokyo Jujutsu High School, you can customize how your character looks, and then you can pick from a few different character archetypes to determine how you fight. You can pick between brawler, summoner, weapons expert, or curse speech. And if you're a fan of the show, you may have noticed that these styles correspond to the abilities of several different characters. Also, these are just a few examples. We could definitely have more of them in the future, and I think a way to keep this game alive will be to add more DLC as time goes, and that DLC would be these different fighting styles. And now that you've created your character, you are ready to join Jujutsu High School. And after a few tutorials in the dojo against some of Masamishi's puppets, you're ready to take on your first mission, which we'll use to explain the basics of gameplay. Let's say the mission you accepted is to exorcise a school, and we're gonna use The Last of Us 2 here to exemplify the structure of a mission. This building, which we'll imagine is the school that's haunted in Jujutsu Kaisen, is a closed-off level, so it's not an open world game exactly, but this level itself is a small sandbox that gives the player a lot of choices on how to tackle this mission. You don't know where your objective is, you don't know where the curse that you have to exorcise is hanging out on, and along the way there might be smaller curses for you to deal with, so you can choose your approach here. You can walk right through the front door and fight your way through until you find your objective, or you could carefully scout the school from the outside and find a place to sneak in unnoticed. And that's because I think a Jujutsu Kaisen game needs not only to have a stylish combat system, but also a stealth system, because in this world, if your name isn't Gojo Satoru, you are not an overpowered teenager that can destroy every single curse. So while fighting against level appropriate curses, I think the game would have a stylish third-person combat system, which would change significantly depending on the style that you picked when you created your character. Any type you've chosen though should be fun to play and explore. You should have combo freedom, space to experiment with different attack buttons, combinations of special moves, or overall just let you express yourself as a player and approach combat differently depending on who you are. This is no easy feat to make every archetype fun, but we're talking about the dream game here, so budget isn't really a concern of mine. But combat won't always be the solution, because once in a while you run into something that you simply cannot defeat, and the game turns into survival horror. This is the twist I would like to see in a Jujutsu Kaisen game. It's a shonen action game for sure, but it's also a horror game when you run into something that's beyond your skill level. Again, using The Last of Us here is a great example. If you're up against a low-level infected, or in this case, a low-level curse, it's not much of a worry and you can take them down quickly. But if you run into a higher grade infected or a clicker in The Last of Us, it can feel truly hopeless to engage in combat, so stealth is your best option. I'd like players to feel that same pressure that I felt when playing something like Alien Isolation, of being up against an unstoppable force that will definitely end you if they find you. If you happen to run into one of these special grade curses, your options are to escape, or if that's not possible, to wait for backup, aka Gojo to the rescue. This is not a game I'd like to mention in the dream game concept, but we could have a Saitama timer like in One Punch Man, and I think that once you run into a special curse on a mission and somehow survive that encounter, you'll probably think twice before walking through the front door on your next mission. Even as an action game, there will be a tension surrounding the air because you don't know what to expect. With this in mind, missions can have different objectives. It could be as simple as defeating a curse that's been haunting a building, in which case the mission ends after you fight that curse in a unique boss fight, or a special grade shows up, destroys that curse for you, objective clear, now just have to worry about escaping. The mission could also be to retrieve a cursed object, so you could do that by sneaking around and not even defeat any curses that are present in the level. Or it could be to rescue someone who is trapped inside a cursed building, and now you have an escort mission. Missions would have some random elements too. Not only is there a chance that a special grade could show up in any mission, but even the smaller curses that you find in your first playthrough might be different or might not even be there at all in your second playthrough. And this is to encourage multiple playthroughs. If you ever want to make a new character with a different set of abilities, a different class type, a different playstyle, or if DLC comes out and you want to try out the new style. You don't have to simply clear the same mission again, they change and evolve to adapt to your own experience. And this is the big reason why this is not an open world game. It's much easier to make repeatable content with randomized elements if you split each level into different missions that players can load into. It also makes the game easier to expand over time by adding new missions and adding new enemies as the anime progresses. Once the mission is done, you get some rewards, which could include new gear, giving you some bonus effects that are useful in battle, maybe even cosmetic items that you can use to customize your character's look, some skill points, as every combat style would have its own skill tree and expand over time, though regardless of the class type that you choose, there are some skills that would be shared between all of them. For instance, the Black Flash or Domain Expansion, which Domain Expansion should be treated as your ultimate ability. It would completely change the stage to fit your character's fighting style, giving you a big advantage on the field. But Domain Expansion can also be deleted or completely overridden by stronger curses. The endgame missions for this would probably be focused around defeating special grades in unique boss encounters, fighting against characters like Mahito, Jogo, Hanami, and Sukuna, with more bosses coming out over time as to not spoil the anime for non-manga readers. These updates should be free, however, because I'm thinking this would be a great game to add co-op to. Take all of that, the combat system, the stealth, the mission structure, and now let us join as a party from 1 to 4 players. If you lock the missions behind the DLC paywall, that would mean that the new missions and bosses would have a very reduced player pool. If you release them for free, you get players to come back to your game and they might buy a new fighting style that you just put out or some cosmetics if they're tired of how their character looks. I know I said I wasn't worried about budget, but sometimes developers watch these videos and I like to be encouraging with the business model. This mission structure and progression actually reminded me of 2 games. The first one was Marvel's Avengers. Instead of different fighting styles, you jump into co-op missions with different characters, and I do wish that the missions were more interesting, but it's enough to give you an idea of the basic structure. And the second game it reminded me of was Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, if you want an anime example. You also talk to a guy in town to start the mission, and then up to 4 players jump in there, defeat a bunch of enemies, and get some loot. These 2 games, however, have a big focus on the action. And this Jujutsu Kaisen game would also have stealth and horror elements too. Now, doing stealth with 4 random players is a bit hard. There have been a few successful stealth games out there, but it usually only works when you're in a party with voice chat, you know, with your own friends that you know. But the good news is, if there's a special grade and someone's being reckless, they're gonna get killed and you'll be just fine. The mission can scale accordingly, like if a player dies, okay, scale it back down to 3 players. In fact, this adds another messed up layer when escaping special grades, because you could make it easier on yourself to escape if you just, oh, I don't know, give away your buddy's position? Kinda like Megumi left Yuji behind to save Nobara. The whole idea just sounds really interesting to me, almost as interesting as today's sponsor, GamerSupps. Here's a tub, it's full of powder, 1 scoop of this into a big cup like this, mix it up, and you've got my favorite all-time drink right here. Not only because it's delicious, but it's got 0 calories and 0 sugars. The energy flavors have completely replaced energy drinks for me. They don't spike my blood sugar, I don't crash hard after I drink it, it's just a nice, stable stream of focus throughout the day. And they've got these caffeine-free flavors too, which is usually what I drink at night. Plus, this is way more affordable than any soda or energy drink out in the market. And that's because this entire 25-ounce cup only took 1 little spoon, which means it costs less than $1. You cannot beat that, especially if you use my link below, which will give you an extra 10% discount on anything you order. You want some waifu cups, some t-shirts, or just the awesome flavors, 10% discount off of everything. And if you enjoy this video, I recommend watching this one on the Dream Bleach game. I went for a completely different concept, but once again, very inspired by your ideas. Boy.